Hello, this is Katrina Bogdon. I'm a naturopathic doctor and I'm here at Meadowbrook Natural Foods store in Mountain Grove, Missouri. Today we're going to talk about the homeopathy section. So join us as we talk about what to do with these small remedies.
My name is Katrina Bogdon. I grew up in the Ozark Hills of Arkansas and graduated from the University of Arkansas with a degree in physics. But then I set out for a different kind of medical school. I attended the oldest naturopathic college in North America, the National College of Natural Medicine, now called NUNM. It is a 4-year medical school that teaches naturopathic medicine. We are responsible for learning conventional Western diagnosis and prescribing, but we train with a very different philosophy and learn several different healing modalities besides drugs and surgery, including homeopathy. Since 2007, I've been licensed in the state of Washington as a naturopathic physician through the Washington Department of Health. Missouri does not legally recognize the practice of naturopathic medicine. So here I serve as a healthcare consultant where I cannot prescribe or diagnose, but in essence, I get to be a second pair of eyes and bring a fresh perspective and different paradigm to my clients where they feel stuck in their health. If there's anything that I find that is concerning, I always do appropriately refer for diagnosis and needed care. I'm honored to work in an integrative health setting called To Be Well in Springfield, Missouri. And beginning in spring of 2018, I also began offering naturopathic consults, retreats, and workshops at my farm in Iris Hill in Seymour, Missouri. Meadowbrook Natural Foods wants to be your source of bulk natural foods, herbs and spices, and supplements. It is a beautiful store located on the square of Mountain Grove, Missouri, and I'm excited to partner with Meadowbrook Natural Foods to introduce you to their homeopathy section. I'm excited to present to you my new series on homeopathy for Meadowbrook Natural Foods customers. This series will consist of several videos, but I think we should start by just introducing what homeopathy is. So let's start off with a few notes about safety. First of all, if you do have a medical condition, please do seek medical diagnosis and treatment when necessary. This is not an appropriate substitute for medical care when it's needed. Furthermore, homeopathic remedies are not FDA-approved medications, to be very clear and upfront. Homeopathy is not intended to treat any specific medical condition. That's not the way that we think about homeopathy. Western conventional medicine is set up to treat very specific medical conditions, but in homeopathy, we're looking more at the broader person and the whole picture, not one specific medical condition. So we can't think of it in that way. There have been some concerning issues with homeopathic remedies being incorrectly labeled. And that does carry a risk because homeopathy in general should be a very, very dilute substance. And substances that are not very dilute are more like an herb or a supplement, not really a homeopathic remedy. And you might see this if they have like a 1X written after them or a 2X. It's not very dilute. And you do need to be a lot more careful about those remedies. We also have to be careful too. Homeopathy is not without potential aggravations when you take it. Sometimes when people take a remedy or take too high of a potency, they can get symptoms they didn't have before taking the remedy. So while it's fairly safe, we rarely do have these aggravations, and it can happen to people. So please do be aware of that. I'll talk and give some suggestions on how we can avoid that, though, in further presentations that we do. And then finally, when we think about homeopathy, please don't see it as a cure-all for everything. It's certainly not meant to be. It has to be combined with many other principles of sound, good health, such as removing the obstacles to healing. For example, if you still have lots of things strewn about your room and you're continually tripping over things and getting bruised, the bruising's not going to get better until you probably pick up the things and stop tripping so much. Furthermore, it's important to have a good foundation to health. So if you're sick all the time, but you're eating a diet of a lot of processed or junk foods, you're probably going to still struggle with getting well until the diet is also addressed and you have a very good foundation for good health. So again, just in summary, homeopathy is not meant to be a fix-it-all, cure-all in and of itself. So what exactly is a homeopathic remedy? Well, it's a very highly dilute natural substance put on the outside of a pellet or given in liquid form. At Meadowbrook Natural Foods, the homeopathic remedies are typically on pellets. And these pellets are sucrose or lactose pellets. So homeopathy, I think about it like inside-out medicine. It's very backwards from what we think about in conventional medicine. So in homeopathy, the more dilute it is, the more potent it is considered to be. So let's take an example of a 30C dilution. So you might see a remedy that says Arnica montana 30C. What does the 30C mean? It means that it's a 1 to 100 dilution 30 times. So it's been diluted 30 times 1 to 100. So it's very, very dilute. So dilute, in fact, that it probably doesn't even have a molecule of the original substance in it. So these remedies are typically extracted from plants, from minerals, and sometimes from animals, such as sepia ink from the cuttlefish. When you use the remedies, it's important to try not to handle the pellets with your hands. Because the medicine is on the outside, you don't want to rub the medicine off with your fingers. So try to empty the pellets into the lid and then dump the content of the pellets under your tongue. These are sublingual medications, so they are absorbed under the tongue. And if you can, try to take them by themselves at least 15 minutes away from food and other medicines or strong tasting substances if possible. And while you're using homeopathy, it's advisable not to use strong substances such as camphor, clove, and peppermint. So homeopathy was developed by Samuel Hahnemann in the early 1800s. He was a medical doctor of that time and looking for a safer and more innovative approach to help his patients. Remember, this was the time that they were using mercury to help treat people, and he had the idea of, instead of using more, what would happen if I were to use less to help people, or to use things that were more dilute? His paradigm is also different in that he decided to use a concept of like treats like. So in Western medicine, it's the opposite. If somebody's vomiting, we give somebody an antiemetic or an anti-vomiting drugs. But in homeopathy, we would instead give something that would cause those same symptoms at a very high dose, but instead give it to you at a very dilute dose to reverse those symptoms. So for example, Samuel Hahnemann might look and see what were all the different symptoms and emotions and mental states that would happen if somebody had a toxic dose of arsenic. We might see vomiting, diarrhea, restlessness, extreme weakness, thirst for cold sips, feeling like you're about to die. So let's say that you had food or alcohol poisoning with those exact same symptoms. He would give you a very, very small amount of arsenicum album, highly dilute, to help reverse those same symptoms. So it is a very different paradigm than conventional Western medicine, and it has been challenging for Western conventional medicine to evaluate and to understand this as a paradigm. So there are several different modalities that I use in my naturopathic practice, but there are some times that I will turn specifically to homeopathy because it has advantages over other modalities. First of all, it's a fairly easy substance to take. It's absorbed sublingually under the tongue, and many people find this to be a sweet or pleasant taste. Second of all, it's pretty affordable. The tubes usually cost under $10 a tube. It has a fairly high safety profile. While certainly it is possible to have aggravations, it is rare that this happens, and compared to many other remedies or supplements that can have other side effects, it tends to have a higher safety profile. I'll often think about homeopathy too when somebody's on several medications and I'm having difficulty finding herbs or other supplements that don't interact. Homeopathy at these higher potencies that I use do not interact with medications and drugs. I also appreciate it because it's a less invasive form of modality, and so we always try to find gentler methods first where possible. Now, of course, if somebody's acutely injured, like in a car accident, or has a very serious condition, such as cancer going on, those are times and instances where we might want to use more invasive techniques to begin with. But in general, for less serious conditions, it's always nice to start with something that's less invasive first, if at all possible. And finally, I appreciate homeopathy in that it really looks at the whole person. So it's not necessarily just, as I said before, based on a specific condition, but really looks at trying to help that person on a very, very deep level for their different expressions of different conditions that they're dealing with. So it's treating the person, not necessarily the condition. Well, what do I mean by homeopathy shouldn't be used for a specific medical condition? Well, you can have 10 different people come in with hot flashes, and they might all need a different homeopathic remedy. You see, people have lots of different expressions of the same disease or symptom. Somebody who has hot flashes might profusely sweat at night, and the next person might not sweat at all, but their face might just turn bright red. Other people may feel the heat in their chest, where other people feel it in the face. So there's lots of different ways in how people express the different symptoms. In homeopathy, we choose remedies based upon that expression, not the disease state so much. And so we select it based on the physical description of the symptoms, a person's preferences and dislikes. So for example, if somebody prefers cold, rainy weather, or if somebody prefers hot, dry weather. We also look at a person's temperament. Do they tend to be very irritable and short? Do they tend to be very fearful and scared all the time? So we really look at all those different aspects of the person. Because we're not necessarily trying to just choose a remedy for a specific condition, it's nice to know that sometimes other symptoms get better too, because again, we're really looking at the whole picture and not just one symptom. In this series on homeopathy, we're going to be covering some common home uses of typical homeopathic remedies. But most commonly, people work with a professional to pick out the appropriate homeopathic remedy. In many cases, if you pick the wrong remedy, just nothing happens and you don't get any effect. But when selected correctly, you'll get a much better effect in the end. So when you work with a professional, you begin by doing an extensive interview so that professional can understand who you are, and when your body's out of balance, how is that expressed? Then they'll look for the most notable features in that case and go to a book called A Homeopathic Repertory. In that book, it mentions several notable features and then the common remedies that are used for that feature. And so they start to build a kind of spreadsheet, and they look at what remedies tend to pop up again and again as they look up your notable features. Then they go and they open something called A Homeopathic Materia Medica, which is a book of all the remedies. And they try to figure out which remedy or substance in nature best matches your expression of disease. Thank you for joining me for this first video on the introduction to homeopathy. Stay tuned for future videos where I'll introduce you to the traditional uses of several of my favorite homeopathic remedies at Meadowbrook Natural Foods. If you would like professional support in selecting a homeopathic remedy, you can contact me at my website at ourhealingroots.net or by phone at 417-319-3081. Meadowbrook Natural Foods is located on the square of Mountain Grove, Missouri at 103 East 2nd Street. They are open Monday through Friday, 9 to 6, and Saturdays, 9 to 4. More information can also be found at meadowbrooknaturalfoods.com. Thanks for joining us.